And here I am in León. So gonna switch it up a bit. I'm gonna have a travel/explore day, and then I'm gonna have a rest day tomorrow for laundry and whatnot, because I have decided after León, I'm jumping back on the Camino. My knee feels a lot better. I'm gonna pay to have this sit forward. So I'm gonna have a nice long day today and a nice easy day tomorrow. After 2 weeks of taking the bus along the Camino, León was my last stop. In all likelihood, this was probably the last city I could fully explore. My future now entailed 4 to 8 hours of walking every day, sitting down, and doing it all over again. My name's Jack Rogers. In June of 2023, I decided I'd had it with normal life and set out to travel the world. 2 years later, I'm still going. I've seen some cool things in my time. I've swam the Nile, followed a matador around Spain, dived the world's oceans, and even returned to Iraq after 5 years away. Now I'm off on my next expedition, an 18-month trek through some of the world's most fascinating pilgrimages. My journey will take me to 12 countries as I walk in the shoes of religious pilgrims, ancient traders, and soldiers who blazed these trails centuries ago. This isn't just another trip. Unlike my first journey, I won't be walking the earth aimlessly. This is a chance to walk with purpose, to trace the footsteps of those who move for faith and survival. These routes carry stories, and I intend to find mine among them. I've never attempted anything like this before, but after 2 years of discovering what this world has to offer, I'm ready to take the plunge into some of life's deeper meaning. I'll be tested, physically and mentally, but I know in the end, it will all be worth it as I become a wayfarer. So it's 10 o'clock in the morning, my first day here in León on exploration day. I'm in the Plaza Mayor, and you can tell it is completely shut down. These restaurants and cafes don't really open. Behind me is the old Ayuntamiento. That's the city hall for the city. And what's interesting about this Plaza Mayor is it has been around since 1654. Now, it's been rebuilt 2 or 3 times since then. But this is a typical Plaza Mayor in a provincial capital or a big city. In fact, it looks a lot like the one in Madrid and in San Sebastian and the Plaza del Castillo in Pamplona. Now, this big square right here, this would have once been used for bullfights. It would have once been used for livestock and trade fairs, and I'm willing to bet that just like in Madrid on this given day, probably Sunday, there is still some sort of shop, fair, or market that goes on here just to keep up the local tradition. Of course, being the Plaza Mayor and a hub for tourism activity, there was some political graffiti around that, once again, was a turnoff to those who wanted to enjoy the city. The true centerpiece for the city is La Catedral de Santa Maria de Regla de León, simply called the León Cathedral. Its construction began in the 1200s and took more than 200 years to finish. In fact, its Wikipedia article says by the mid-15th century, it was virtually completed, which meant there were still works going on. The cathedral isn't the first building on the site though. In Roman times, it was a Roman bathhouse. Then it was a royal palace. Then came the León Cathedral. Like the cathedral in Burgos, it cost 10 euros to go in and came with an audio guide. You could also pay for a guide to take you around, which is what most of the tourists inside the cathedral did. While I enjoyed this environment, there were a lot of people, and the number of people was a big turnoff for many pilgrims. I can understand that. After a long day of walking, you don't want to spend your time amongst a lot of people trying to enjoy the sight. You just want to relax. While the main part of the cathedral is really dedicated to tourists, you could go through a free entry to enter the worship chapel. This is where a lot of the daily masses happen, and it's also where the image of the Saint Mary is located. The cloisters were beautiful, with a bunch of sculptures and a wonderful view of the cathedral's tower. These sculptures along the right are actually of the 12 apostles. All of them are here in intricate detail, which I really enjoyed from a Christian perspective. Something I had noticed while traveling along the Camino is that the main cathedrals
aren't dedicated, usually, to an apostle, a saint, or another figure of Catholic lore. Instead, they are dedicated to some version of the Virgin Mary. As I was on my way out of the cathedral, I passed by a museum that cost a few extra euros to go in. I didn't visit, mainly because I was looking at the budget, but I'm sure it was worth it. Still, the 10 euros I paid for this cathedral was more than I bargained for.
I gotta say, I was feeling really down at not being able to walk the entire Camino because of my knee and my ankles at the beginning. But on the train here to León from Valencia, we stopped at several locations and pilgrims got on the train and make their way to León. And there's a lot of people here who this is their starting point. So I do feel a lot less bad now, even though I wanted to hike the whole thing, knowing that, you know, I'm not the only one to say I just couldn't do the whole thing or I just wasn't up for it at the time.
Like most old cities and a lot of the provincial capitals, León was originally a walled city, and some of those walls still exist today. This statue is of King Alfonso IX of León. He was one of the most important kings in the Kingdom of León. He participated in the Reconquista and actually summoned the first parliament in Western Europe, reflecting the fullest participation of the citizenry seen in Europe until that time. Of course, history is rarely so clean, and he actually invaded the Kingdom of Castile with assistance from the Muslim troops he was fighting as a part of the Reconquista.
Behind me is the Basilica of San Isidoro. San Isidoro was once the Bishop of Sevilla. He was that for 3 decades. This church is actually built in the 900s, but did not finish until the 1100s. I mean, no surprise. Just look at it. Now, you may have noticed in several of the cathedrals along the way, the one I just went to in the center of León, and this one here, there are either fences or chains separating it from the rest of the community. That is because these churches were once under the not just papal, but legal and sovereign authority of the Vatican. That is not the case anymore, with minor exceptions. But once upon a time, that was the case. So all you had to do was cross that chain if you were on the run, either from an army or police or government or whatever, and you were in another sovereign territory, similar to how embassies work today. Now, that's not the case anymore, but if you have seen the animated movie Hunchback of Notre Dame, very similar in that regard. Also, modern twist, similar to the John Wick movies when they stick their hand on the hotel and they say there's no business on continental grounds. It's very similar.
This basilica was originally a monastery dedicated to St. John the Baptist. It was rededicated to San Isidoro de Sevilla in 1063. Why? Well, that has to do with the Muslim invasion of the Iberian Peninsula. When the Muslims invaded Andalusia, San Isidoro's relics were still down in Sevilla. The Kingdom of León made an agreement with the Muslim ruler of Sevilla to relocate the saints' relics to León so they could be buried on Christian soil.
Speaking of papal sovereignty, there's been an interesting debate going online in certain corners of the internet, and even in the thought experiment, social political idea side of the sovereignty of the Vatican, because the Vatican is not a UN member officially. It is an observer state, and many don't view it as a proper country, although many do. And it's an interesting question as to what is a country. And the reason the debate has come up is because there is an American citizen who is now the Pope, which would make him, if you consider the Vatican a country, as many people and countries do, a foreign sovereign that is an American. And it would be an interesting situation that the United States could have influence and control over another nation, and what the implications are for that. Underneath several different U.S. laws, tax implications, you name it. The easy answer is to say, oh, well, the Vatican is not a country. But if you do that, you incur other problems, such as, they have their own immigration and visa system. They've got all these embassies that are just for them. So it's an interesting debate now, of course. No one's going to incur on the Vatican. No one's going to invade. No one's going to declare it anything other than a sovereign entity for a lot of reasons. Chief among them being the Catholic nations of the world would come together and destroy anyone that tried. But I do think it's just, in the context of history like this, an interesting discussion to have on the concept of sovereignty and what is and is not a country, especially as it applies to the Palestinian territories, Kosovo, Taiwan, and over in Eastern Europe, some of the Eastern Ukrainian territories. To be sure, once upon a time the Vatican was absolutely independent, sovereign territory, and the Vatican even appointed kings of other sovereign independent territories. So historically they have been. Are they today? Great, more intellectual question than anything else, but I thought it was interesting in the context of that cathedral there. Unrelated, something you don't get to see, especially because I got sunglasses on all the time, is I'm constantly watching out ahead and around me for people, and you might see the camera move a bit, or if you see me start walking or turning, it's because I'm dealing with other traffic than just myself. Welcome to the life of a long-term traveler that's trying to make it as a travel writer and vlogger.
My final stop in exploring León's Catholic history was the Convento de San Marcos. Unlike other conventos that are still standing in parts of Spain, like the one in Belorado or the one in Burgos, this convento is actually now a state-owned luxury hotel. Still, the sanctuary is still attached and it holds masses every day. You can also visit a museum in the cloisters free of charge, provided they're open. What's ironic about this convent's history is that it was originally intended to be a modest building where the, quote, poor of Christ could stay. That was the intent of the Sancha of Castilla, the sister of Alfonso VII of León, when she made the first donation for its construction. I wonder what she'd say if she knew it was a luxury hotel today. Unfortunately, the convento is not free from Spain's dark history, and it was turned into a dungeon and concentration camp during the Spanish Civil War. It held up to 7,000 men and 300 women at any given time, and it's estimated that more than 20,000 people passed through its doors. Most of those Republican militia members and political prisoners.
I'm walking to get a new walking stick because, as I said in my video about Logroño, I'm a dum-dum and left it in a cafe in Estella, and I haven't needed it, but now that I'm jumping back on the Camino, I am going to need it. And, you know, something about provincial capitals in Spain is they're dense cities, but they sprawl out as they've grown. And as a result, the big stores are on the outskirts of town. So I have been walking from that convent almost 40 minutes now to get to the decathlon, which is right up there. That's like going to the coffee shop at the end of my street. You can see it, but that don't mean you're close. And kind of out here is all the major department stores. So like the Aldi's been out here. You've got some car dealerships up here. You've got, there's a Burger King behind me. And I'm seriously considering hitting up for lunch because it's coming up on 2 o'clock and I'm hungry. And out here, I've been on sidewalks this whole time. No shade, no cloud in the sky. This is what it's going to be like to walk the Camino again. So definitely going to be waking up early to get on the road, if only to beat the heat. I'm literally getting the last one that they have of the folding ones in the model that I bought in Pamplona, which was 20 euros in Pamplona, and it's 40 here at Decathlon. Now I feel like a real dum-dum because I have spent 60 euros on one of these. I don't know if you can see it behind me with the GoPro camera, but I can see it with these glasses on because that's what they're designed for. There is a like tan haze above town, and that looks like dust. It doesn't look like pollution. That looks like like straight up dust, like Sahara dust type thing. And I mean, Sahara dust does get up this far, but Joe, if you were here, that could be problematic in some of these cities, especially if we'd have come here straight after San Fermin. We'd have been toast.
My final day in León was an easy day, full of what I call administrative tasks, like laundry and booking the next albergue.
Feels a little weird, to be honest, with getting ready to get back on the Camino, but I got a bag full of laundry, so can't be all bad. That's it for part 2 of my 3rd week along the Camino de Santiago as I prepare to start walking the back half. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single thing coming to you from the adventure across the world, and we'll see you guys on the road.